There's a point in our lives, regardless of where you are in your life, whether you're just setting out to be an adult for the first time, or maybe you're having your first great grandchild. But there's always this point in everyone's life where there's changes that need to be made. And for me, there was a moment in time when I was a single father and I was driving to work, and I'll never forget what it was like. It was snowing outside, and I was driving through Midtown Kansas City, and I realized I had to change. I knew in that moment that I had to change, that I couldn't be the young man that I had always been, that I had to become something different, that I had to be a more responsible father. I had to focus on my children more. I had to take focus off of the things of the world, like going out with friends or doing going to concerts, or those things that I was really into at that time. And as time went by, there were decisions that I made about my parents. For example, I remember saying there were things they did. I would never do those things. A lot of the parenting decisions I make now, I do because I would not do what my parents did. For example, my father disappeared when I was second grade-ish. We didn't know if he was alive or dead until I was well into my adult life. And I swore I'd never do that to my kids. I would never do that. I would always be there for them. Always be there for them. Because changes had to be made. I could not continue in that cycle of abandonment. And as a result, like even where I sit right now, I'm only a 10-minute drive from the house I was raised in. As a young child, I just never left. Wanted to travel the world, definitely wanted to travel the world. All my siblings, they went out and traveled the world, but I stayed here and raised a family. And there's a particular verse that I think is so critical that I think we have to, as Americans, as citizens of this world, we have to turn the chapter on how the world is raising our children and focus in on how we should be raising our children, what it is we should not be doing. And we need to eliminate those things that we should not be doing, whether they're generational curses, whether they're things that is a habit that you have that you realize, I have to stop this thing. This thing has to come to an abrupt end, because the way we should be raising our children, and this really didn't become a part of my home until maybe decades later. My kids were probably teenagers by the time this applied to me. I'm going to go to Deuteronomy 6, starting verse 5. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Growing up, nobody really taught me about the love of God and how much I need to love Him. Nobody taught me these things. And I'm willing to bet nobody's teaching your children those things, but people are teaching your children things. And as family leaders, we have to make decisions on what are we going to make important. This is a basic first step. Show your children this. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk about them in your house. It's so important we get there, ladies and gentlemen. It's so important that this whole thing about the world is teaching your children things. They're teaching them a lot of things. We have to turn the page on this, and we have to take responsibility. We have to do the thing. We have to look at the world and say, I'm not going to do that. That thing that the world is teaching my children, I'm not going to do that. That thing that my parents taught me, I'm not doing that. That thing that my grandparents did, I'm not doing that thing. We have to make those hard decisions. Because as humans, we often say, well, my parents did it, so it's okay. It's always been this way. We have to break generational curses, and we have to teach our families about the love of God. It has to be done. Hope this video helps. Definitely pray that it is changing hearts and minds in the way that we're raising our children. You know, and my kids, I guarantee if you knew them, you'd think, well, you know, Mark, your kids, you know, they're great kids, they're doing good things, but if you knew them well, they got their things they're dealing with. Of course they do. But they know that their father is there for them. They know that. I didn't know that. Many of you didn't know that, but they know that. And they can reflect on that and apply that to the way God is there for them. And they know that their father loves God with all his heart, with all his might, with all his soul, and that he tries to show that love to them as well. They know that. It's important all of the children of this world know that. It's important that every family in this country knows that. And we have to start here. Just like that day when I'm driving down the road, it's snowing. I changed that day. I made a decision to change that day in that moment, driving down that road in the snow. And I did change that day. It wasn't just a thought. It was a reality check that changed the course of my life. And it was because I just cared about my children. I didn't want the things that happened to me to happen to them. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Feel called to support this channel with Patreon. That link is also below. The most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests. So please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guidance. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.